live. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We're live. I'm Dave Guerra. This is Let's Have a Chat About Leadership for Friday, November 8th, 2019. It's the second Friday of the month. So, woohoo. Okay, we made it to the end of the work week. There's still a lot of things to do. And again, if you're not hustling, you're grinding, doing your side hustle, your side grind, then hey, it's about time you pick up something, you do something, you sell something, you make something, you produce something, you manufacture something. Because again, we need to be doing that. And if your something is investing, well, good kudos to you. But again, you still need to, modify that, expand on that, ramp things up, expand on it, diversify, and that's today's word, is diversification. Meaning you're spreading your resources out, stocks, your paycheck, stocks, bonds, savings account, mutual funds, and again, so on and so on and so many things. And of course, your own business, self-created entrepreneur business. And that being the case, make sure you're doing something. And that's what the weekends are all about. If you have no idea what to do, give me a holler, drop me a note. We'll talk about something. I mean, I do my thing. I love doing my thing, but I could always do something more. And I'm already working on that something more. So again, once you get the bug, it gets going in you and it's hard to let go. So that being said, let's keep moving. All right, so here's what we got. Today is Friday, November 8th, 2019. Friday, November 8th. November 8th. Tomorrow is November 9th. November 9th, 2019. That's what follows the 8th, is the 9th. 30 years ago today, tomorrow on the 9th. And because I'm doing this now, because we don't do the show on the weekend. We got to do other things. November 9, 1989 is the day the Berlin Wall fell. And how does that apply to leadership? Well, again, the world changed. 24 hours. The world woke up. There was two Germanys. There was two Berlins. There was the East. There was the West. And then by the end of the day, by the end of the evening, by midnight, that first chip began to crumble. That division began to crumble. And all because all summer long, things have been brewing in East Germany. And as the fall progressed, the fall, meaning the season progressed from transition from summer to fall, things were starting to happen. And Hungary had opened its borders. So Hungary back then in the 1990s, 80s was a communist state. It was a Warsaw Pact, Eastern Bloc nation. And so it kind of fell into the same ideology as East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Poland, and well, again, the Soviet Union. So all of that, that whole mindset, that whole methodology, that whole ideology, the whole way of doing things, it was starting to come to a head because change was happening. You had the Solidarity Labor Union running things over there in Poland. You had the silent protest or the peaceful protest. It was protest all over East Germany. There was, I guarantee you two things. There was nobody was wearing masks and hoodies and destroying property. That's the second thing. No, it wasn't allowed. It wasn't tolerated. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't even an idea. So destroying public or private property wasn't how this all came about. Change was not done that way. Change was done the way it needs to be done: orderly, purposefully, organized, and moving forward. So that happened. And then eventually it started getting to a head, and then slowly things were starting to happen within the East German government itself. People were starting to say, well, maybe we need to listen to the people. Maybe we need to ease up some restrictions. Maybe we need to do something different. And the hardliners didn't like it because, well, what it was a threat to their position, their power, their authority. And trust me, when people are in such positions, and you see it nowadays, when people are in such positions, when they feel that their power and their authority and their position is being threatened, things happen. They lash out. Well, some people were relieved of duty. Some people were fired from the posts and positions, but eventually it all had to come to an end. And that's what happened. On November 9th, East German ministers met. They said, okay, well, we'll open up some travel restrictions. We'll ease up on them. They can go across. As long as they come back, that's all. We're good to go. They don't want a brain drain. And the brain drain is what was causing the wall to come up in the beginning, to begin with, because from after World War II to up until August of 1961, there were a lot of people defecting or leaving the eastern part of the city in Eastern Germany, those intellectuals, artists, scientists, engineers, those kind of people. And they were taking that knowledge and skill set with them to the West. And the Soviets, well, they didn't want to do that. And the East Germans definitely didn't want to do that because they didn't want that to happen because, again, it was going to drain from their growth potential, their ability to expand and maximize and exemplify and move forward with communism and socialism. And, well, that wasn't going to be tolerated. So that's why the wall went up, to kind of stop that. And it did. The division, the Iron Curtain, the Berlin Wall, the whole 9 yards. It did. There weren't as many mass defections. I mean, it just completely went down. But people tried over the years. For 28 years, they tried. And okay, so fast forward back to the November 9, 1989. So these ministers got together. Okay, here are all the rules. Here's everything. Let's go ahead and tell the world we're going to make changes happen. Well, here's the other part of leadership. If you don't have all the details, what do? And if you're the person that has to answer that question, what do you do? Well, here's what happened. So in the press conference, they were announcing that these travel restrictions are going to be eased up. Things are going to happen. You can move across through borders, through the regular checkpoints. As long as people come back and everything's going to be fine, we're going to really, really change this up because they don't need another mass defection like they were having in the 50s and prior to the construction of the Berlin Wall. So an Italian reporter at that press conference that evening, and on the evening, late afternoon, early evening, November 9, 1989, this Italian reporter, okay, this is all great, fine and dandy, but you didn't say when this is going to begin. And so the gentleman that was asking, Shabasky, he was asked the question, the minister there, and he was trying to get an answer. He didn't have it in writing. He couldn't stop and, let me text somebody, let me Skype somebody, let me tweet somebody for the answer. We didn't have that. They didn't have that. No one had that in 1989. So what happened? That's right. He had to come up with an answer. He had to come up with an answer right then and there. And the answer was immediately. Effective now, immediately, because he wasn't sure. He didn't have a definitive answer. And again, there was nobody around to give him that definitive answer. So he made a judgment call. He assumed it was going to happen. It was already set to happen. So let it happen now. Again, because there was nothing in writing. Lack of information, lack of listening, lack of attention to detail changed the world. So sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. But when you don't have all the details and somebody's got to make a decision, guess what? Somebody has to make a decision. No, they didn't take him out back and shoot him or anything. No, the guy's fine. Everything worked out. So the people watching this press conference, they started putting 2 and 2 together. They head out to the border. They head out to the checkpoints, Bernauer Strasse, Checkpoint Charlie, all over between East and West Berlin. Okay, so they get there. Now the East German border guards, now these guys notoriously, not as individuals, not as human beings, but as border guards. They had this unofficial, long-standing order: shoot to kill. Shoot your own citizens. They're trying to escape. Well, these guards are sitting there. It's a Thursday evening. So it wasn't even a weekend yet. It was a Thursday evening, November 9, 1989. These guards are just sitting there doing their duty. And trust me, I've pulled a lot of guard duty when I was in Berlin. And trust me, Thursday nights, you don't want to do it. It's the most quiet evening ever, anything you're doing. Because the weekend, that's when things are going to pick up. And early in the week, things are business as usual. But Thursday night seems to be the calmest, quietest night. Well, all of a sudden, this humanity, the sea of humanity is coming across Bernauer Strasse, coming across Checkpoint Charlie, or towards the East German or East Berlin checkpoint. And there's like, no, it just said we can go across. And finally, somebody picked up the phone and it's like, what do I do? Can't shoot them all. It's like, throw open the gate. Got to go. This is it. And then, they got to verify. And sure enough, they verified that it was a done deal. So the Berlin Wall fell. And that was the beginning of the end. I mean, there's more the official beginning of the end. Obviously, the defection and the Hungary opening its borders and the people navigating through Hungary and Austria and so on and coming across to West Germany. It was really awesome times. I'm sad I wasn't physically there on November 9, 1989. Did go back on November 9, 2009 for the 20th anniversary. That was fantastic. Took my family, took my daughter, took my son. They were 10 years younger, but again, it was fantastic time because now I got to do something I could not do and that was walk through the Brandenburg Gate. We Because the wall was right there. We couldn't do that. That was guarded. That was like, no, can't do that. Can't walk through it. I did it. It got done. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. The wall, to me, while I was there, never seemed like it was ever going to fall. It kind of felt like this is just going to be the stalemate. This is going to be what Korea is now, in the sense of that DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And that was kind of what Berlin was to me. It was never going to change. The DMZ still exists, but Berlin, it's all one now. And that's awesome. That is fantastic. I know my friends, my army buddies, everybody I've ever talked to, everybody I've ever dealt with that was in Berlin. It caught all of us off guard. It completely caught us off guard. We weren't expecting it to happen. And then we were seeing things happening in the news, and it was getting reported back to us. And we were understanding that things are changing, But that summer for us, I was still in the military. That summer for us was focusing on Central America, on Panama, because Christmas time, 1989. That's when the U.S. Army, the 18th Airborne Corps Rangers, and a couple of other Marines and naval units and stuff like that all went into Panama. But that's a different time. That's for a different thing. So the military focus was not necessarily on the Fulda Gap. Not necessarily on East Germany or East Berlin. The Fulda Gap is where the military scholars, where the military professionals, and that's where they said if the Soviets and the East Germans were to ever attack, they would roll through the Fulda Gap in Germany, and that's where they would see the entire motorized rifle division after motorized rifle division come barreling into West Germany. That wasn't to be, and that's a good thing. So it's nice to sit back and say, hey, look, I was there. I understand. I know what happened. I saw for my own eyes those bread lines. I never want to see them anywhere, because, again, that was a byproduct of the communism and the socialism. Never want to see those anywhere, because, again, it's just difficult to see. We come from a place here and full of we have a lot. We make a lot, we produce a lot, we consume a lot, we have a lot, because that's just how we as a nation, as a people in the West have said, this is how we want to live. And in the East, they were forced to live that way, where food wasn't readily available, it wasn't abundant. Same thing with vehicles. When I first got there and I got a tour to East Berlin, the first tour I took to East Berlin, I was told about the vehicles. That if you want a vehicle, you have to get on a list for 6 months. I can just go down maybe 5 minutes down the road, run into a car dealership, and in 30 minutes, I've got a car, brand new automobile. Back over there, no, you had to wait 6 months, because, again, who you were, where you fell in line, why you needed a vehicle. Again, because what served the party, what served the nation, stuff to think about. Oh, man. Oh, and to wash the car, you had water was, resources were very controlled as well. You had to wait another 6 months. So technically, if you wanted to wash your car, you had to get in line you had to register, sign up to get your car washed before you could even get your car. So it's just one of those. You got your car, you drove around, got it washed, and then you had to wait another 6 months to wash it. And those cars, the Trabants, oh my. And I could go on and on. I'm not going to go on and on, because, again, that's for a different time, different thing. But I'm just recognizing that, hey, the leadership aspects of what happened that evening 30 years ago had repercussions that last 30 years and well into the future, because, again, that's the way it is. So take it for what it is. Take the leadership aspect of attention to detail, having all the information, going into any meeting that you go into, leading a group of people. Obviously, the leadership recognized the change had to happen, because they could not, so they had to do something to help the people out. And luckily, it stabilized. Yet sadly, 30 years later, there still is some trouble, some getting used to each other, especially the eastern part of Germany, or Eastern Germany, what was East Germany, and what was more the industrial, ready to go, up and running West Germany. And so there's still that economic difference, and there's a demarcation line for that, sadly. But for the most part, it's all good. It's all good, and it's a good thing, because change is what we need, change is what we expect, and change is what we demand. And change is going to happen. I never thought the Berlin Wall was going to fall, and it sure did. So kudos to everyone that ever served, all British forces, French forces, American forces, U.S. forces in West Berlin, in West Germany. Without them, us, me with them all together, we couldn't have won this. We couldn't have made this happen. We could not have allowed it to be feasible for the East Germans to start doing their thing. Because again, we did our resolve. So kudos to everybody. Congratulations, Germany, 30 years old. Well, yeah, give it a take. Unified. Listen, have a good evening. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll talk to you on Monday. Take care.